It was much anticipated, a response to Iran. I mean, this is a targeted strike such that it was a message without being a true retaliation that might involve an escalation, if you see the point. In fact, I think the idea was to communicate the fact that Israel is capable of striking into Iran in specific military sites that are involved in, even though was rumored at the time, it didn't happen, nuclear weapons manufacturing, which Iran is now on track to do, as you're well aware, because we pulled out of that accord that really limited the development of enriched uranium on the part of the Iranians. And one of the reasons we did that, well, the only reason we did that, I think, on the part of Donald Trump, is because Obama had put us into it. I mean, it was, worst deal ever, all the stuff that Donald Trump said. He had no idea what was in the Iran nuclear deal, none. And there were many signatories to that deal, including Russia and China. So you had a tremendous buy-in on the part of the world community to that Iran nuclear deal. But anyway, Trump pulled us out because it was Obama. And now we're stuck with an Iran that is on track to developing a nuclear weapon. So back to the retaliatory strike. The Israelis struck not the weapons plant, but close to the general area where the weapons plant is. The idea being that the message is sent, we can strike you at strategic military targets at the time of our choosing. And so you could see how now you can still stop the action. Now, you could have said, well, the Israelis could have stopped the action when they had shot down all of the drones and missiles that were fired into Israel. Yeah, I think both Benjamin Netanyahu and also the Iranian leader whose name escapes me now, but I mean, it's the Iranian leadership. It's not just one leader. They're under pressure from the street to respond. And so with that said, you're almost forced into some kind of response, and so you want the response to be measured and nonetheless send a signal. And if that was your goal, I think the Israelis reached that goal. I don't know that it's the end of it, but I hope it is the end of it. The reality is that you could get this thing escalating into a full-blown conflagration that is far more encompassing Hezbollah and Iranian proxies, as well as the state of Iran. Iran and Israel are the strongest military forces involved in this entire tension-filled scene. No question about that. But you have the already implied, I see the trolls, and I'll address the trolls in a second. You have the already implied support of America, and now the explicit support of America, and the Israelis have that waiting in the wings. You also have the implied, and maybe not so implied anymore, as I say, maybe more explicit, participation of other countries in the region in shooting down the drones that came into Israel. Jordanians, the Saudis. So, excuse me, I'm going to sneeze.
It's scary to me because when I see Israel already at conflict with Hamas, and then you have another country coming into it, my first thought is, oh no, here we go toward World War III. And maybe that's not the case, because you said earlier yesterday that it seems to be kind of choreographed almost, like they're warning each other, almost telling each other what's going to happen before it happens. So I don't know, but the more I see of bombs falling in countries shooting at each other, the more it freaks me out.
Oh, there's no question that it's nothing good, and it's of concern, and it is freaky. Mm-hmm. But I guess what I'm saying is that there is a measured aspect to the back and forth. I mean, it's done very deliberately and with the intent of communicating certain things associated with, if you do this, we'll do that. And that's happening on both sides. I have input overload now. Fear and worry about Middle East, outrage and nausea about Trump, shock and sadness about self-immolation, freaking out about own health stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a rough
Well, that
time.
is the hat trick. I wish we had something for you. I appreciate the total freak out is something that is warranted. I wish I could tell you, don't freak out. I have what's I've mentioned this to you before. It's normalcy bias. You know, the general disposition mentally to suggest everything's going to be okay, and it conflicts and fights with something else that you know I have, which is utter pessimism about the human race and human species. So I'm fighting these two things. This sense that things are going to be okay and always sort of a reversion to the okay mean, and the fact that you can have very little to no faith in humanity and you'll be right in having no faith. But the only other specifics I would say, excuse me.
Yeah. Oh, you must be coming down with a cold or
Excuse
something,
me.
maybe.
No, I think
Yeah.
it's allergies or something. Maybe it's all the medicines that you're putting me on.
There you go.
The difference between the Israeli retaliatory strike and the Iranian retaliatory strike, and when you talk about choreography, I think this is important because I think these things help shed light on the choreography of it, to use that word. The deliberate, almost theatrical nature of the messages sent militarily. The Iranian strike, you'll recall, was warned of by the Iranians hours before it happened. That's why we talked about this, the successful intercept of those missiles and drones was made easier because of the warning. They could have had Hezbollah with a surprise attack on Israel. And Hezbollah is right there in southern Lebanon. So you could have had that in a very strong way. That would have been I think that could have been really the start of a war. And the attempt to push Hezbollah back to the north. But in any case, they didn't ask for their proxies to do anything. They wanted to show, and in this message sending, that they could, from Iran, send these missiles and drones into Israel. So again, they announced that. It's in contrast to what the Israeli retaliation was. That was not announced. In fact, Israel hasn't even claimed credit for it yet. So I think that is important. I think they're trying to keep things not so much on the down low, but to keep the burner on simmer. And that's important. I don't think either side is spoiling for a war or for an escalation, but both sides feel obligated to ramp up their response. And so you'd certainly think now, I know I'll get to all of the trolls in a second. Now I think the world waits. I think the world waits. So again, you have the public retaliation. And by the way, it's not nothing. I'd look at the oil markets. I'd look at those who are investors. You know what investors want? They want stability. That's why so many investors invest in the United States of America, because our political system and general structure of government and transfer of power, up until Trump showed up, is very reliable. The dollar is very reliable. They like reliability. They like stability. So if you look at the oil markets, they kind of shrugged this whole thing off. You didn't see any wild escalation or spike in oil prices. That should tell you something about the way this whole thing went down. You can glean certain information from the world markets, the commodities markets, and from investors. So now, give me a troll or two, Albert. What the hell is this? Because I say it's choreography. Peter says, Mark, you make it sound like it's a mashup of the monkeys fighting and the Waltz of the Danube, music from 2001: A Space Odyssey. It is choreographed in a sense. You know what I mean.
How should the United States respond, or should we?
I mean, I think the United States has done I think asking for cooler heads to prevailing on Israeli leadership, which they have done and continue to do. And by the way, Israeli leadership did contact the United States to tell them of this prior to the attack. So the communications between Israel and the U.S. are strong. What did October 7th communicate? Well, I mean, October 7th and communicate is in quotes from Phineas. October 7th was a horror. It's been met with horror in Gaza. There's nothing more I can say on that. I mean, it really is. It's, when there is a gleeful live streaming of atrocities, that takes the celebration of horror to another level. And then, of course, the Israeli response, strong, pulverizing huge parts of Gaza, trying to root out Hamas, but in the process, so many innocents involved and lost. It's an absolute horror show. So it's performative now with Bibi's response, but it's not over, JS says. Bibi, look at Bibi. JS on a first-name basis with the Israeli leadership. Yes, Bibi. Bibi and I feel it's not over yet. Here we go. This is Delwood Kelp. He's challenging Chris Hultgren and Andrew Peters for Troll of the Year. It's still early, but Delwood says, Mark, totally naive that the prior Iranian nuclear agreement would have stopped Iran from developing a weapon. That was a joke. They want the bomb, cheating all the way. Yeah, well, Delwood, this is a great comment. If you're talking out of your ass, do you know what that agreement was about? Do you know the kind of inspectors that would go in and make sure that there wasn't Iranian enrichment? You couldn't move it. It's very hard, Delwood, as you probably know, since you seem to know a lot. It's very hard to move these wildly unstable elements from one place to another. You had buy-in from the entire world community. Iran had a lot on the line. It was recognized by organizations worldwide. I'm talking about nuclear regulatory organizations worldwide as a solid treaty. So you may be right about one thing. The Iranians are looking for ways to cheat. Okay, so they are. But you have a kind of stewardship now of their program and surveillance of their program that has been sanctioned by them. That was, I think, a really important agreement. And Trump pulled us out of it because he didn't know what the hell he was doing. It was like all things, a thing he voted on. Worst deal ever. Can't believe we made it. He didn't know anything about the Iran nuclear deal. Nothing. And honestly, Delwood, with all respect, and I don't know what respect you deserve, but with all respect, I don't think you knew a lot about it either. You're just about Iranians are going to cheat, blah, 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 blah. Well, even so, as I say, you can keep an eye on what was going on. Karen says the Iranians don't have rocket capabilities to launch at hundreds of miles, let alone thousands. If they put their missiles in Gaza to strike, that would be bad. Yeah. Yeah, and this is my point from Agolf. Weapons inspections are better than lack of weapons inspections. Thank you. Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.